Welcome back, guys. So Gotham is back, and it is back with a vengeance. It is back planning on delivering one hell of a second arc of the season. Now, I know that some people kind of complain that Gotham is not really very true to the Batman comics, that it is very insulting to the Batman comics, because all of these villains and all of these characters are just growing up so fast, like growing in terms of character development and faster than Bruce Wayne or Batman. But then you need to remember that Batman becomes Batman because of what's going on in Gotham, because of all the evil that is in Gotham. Moving on though, this episode was exactly why I love Gotham. This episode was exactly why I think Gotham is the best of all DC TV series. So the comparison here is basically with all those Arrowverse series out there. It is the ability of the series to deliver all these storylines, it is the confidence it returns with, starting all these new mysteries, resolving all of them by the end of the episode. Obviously, they do know that they've got a lot to present over the course of the second arc of the season. Obviously as well, they're not going to do any of all that dragging that a lot of the other DC TV series do. And that's a good thing, that's a great thing actually. But there is this one other thing that I noticed on last night's episode, and it is really interesting. It does tell us that they are trying to reboot all the characters in a manner of speaking. They are changing how the characters are written and moving away from repetition. Take, for example, the character of Edward Nygma. Now, we have seen Edward Nygma before go through all of this. You know, looking at the mirror, struggling with that other persona within him, the Riddler's persona. But then this time around, it's not just that. The two personas are not really working hand in hand like the case used to be before, but instead the Riddler and Edward Nygma are two separate people. They are working in two completely different directions. Now, the first of these two personas, the Edward Nygma persona, he's trying to be supportive of Lee. He's trying to make sure that she achieves whatever she's set on achieving. He's trying to make sure that she makes the Narrows a better place. He believes in her, he helps her, and he's not willing to allow anyone to do any kind of harm to her. He feels like he owes her, and he feels like she sees the best in him. But then we've got the Riddler persona, the major surprise at the very end of the episode, one that was really, really good. But as opposed to Nygma, the Riddler has completely different motivations. He just wants to see Lee dead. He wants to see her out of the picture. He wants to make sure that she has no control over Edward Nygma, no sway over him anymore, because that way he could go on full-time to his bad old terrible evil ways. So yes, that was a really, really good twist. Didn't see it coming, was really exciting to watch it, and kind of debunks the theory that some people had that Lee and Nygma are kind of going to develop this romantic relationship. But speaking of Lee and relationships, we've got this relationship brewing in the background. I think it's gonna happen before the end of the season, and that would be Lee and Alfred Pennyworth. So that would be actually very true to the comics. Now, if you do remember, the first time Alfred Pennyworth met with Lee Thompkins, that was either on season 1 or on season 2, he seemed to have this major crush on her. I'm guessing that back then, or at that point in time, they didn't really know what they're gonna do with the character of Lee. Are they gonna have her end up with Jim? Are they gonna have her end up with Alfred Pennyworth? It was totally unclear at that point. Besides that, Barbara back then was still in play in Jim's life. Now, at this point, we've got Lee Thompkins in the Narrows playing Doctor and Leader, and we've got Alfred Pennyworth as well in the Narrows after his fallout with Bruce Wayne, and he's playing some sort of a minor vigilante over there. So what I'm personally thinking is going to happen over here is that Alfred Pennyworth is going to start helping Lee Thompkins protect the Narrows from all the evil surrounding them. And he's gonna start helping her build that one united Narrows that she keeps speaking of. At the moment as well, I don't think the relationship between Jim Gordon and Lee Thompkins is reparable in any kind of way. So you could imagine how I think this will go. Now, this could also end up being the Riddler's way out, because Nygma is sort of crushing on Lee, or at least it does seem that he harbors good feelings for Lee. After all, she sees the good in him, she tries to help him, she tries to support him, and she looks at him like he's a good guy, something that makes Nygma want to stay and not allow the Riddler out. But once he sees her with Alfred Pennyworth, once he sees her in this all-new relationship, that could drive him away from her and into his Riddler persona. Now, even if he doesn't have feelings for her, and even if he doesn't care to that extent, but just cares about her as this friend who's helping him, the fact that he sees Alfred Pennyworth getting close to her anyone for that matter, getting that close to her, closer than him at this moment, would just drive him away because of all his psychological issues that we all know about. But speaking of this whole possibility of a relationship between Alfred Pennyworth on one hand and Lee Thompkins on the other hand, I expected that was gonna be the case at the very beginning of the episode when they all ran into this burning, exploding building and Lee ran out of it. I was like, okay, so they are in the same place. That is finally happening like it was in the comics. But then, number 3, we got introduced to Tiffany Gale, and it did seem that Alfred Pennyworth is kind of having a connection with her, and he does mention that after she's killed later on. Now, even though I did like the introduction of Tiffany, I thought she would be an interesting character. The acting for the character was really decent for however short she lived. That happened to be the fastest acquittal in history. So Tiffany's boyfriend, Gil Rooney, kills Tiffany, frames Alfred for it. Alfred goes on the hunt for him and almost ends up taking him and his friends down before they overpower him. But also before, number 4, we come to realize that there's a new bartender in town and his name is Harvey Bullock. So what happened over there is we were presented with a couple of mysteries. Who hired the Toyman in order to kill Lee, and where the hell is Harvey Bullock? But then by the end of the episode, we got resolutions for both mysteries. Harvey Bullock has been working his ass off as a bartender and has been enjoying it, and he does come to the rescue of Alfred at the perfect moment. But then not too long after, he reunites with Jim, who's been looking for him since the beginning of the episode. And when they do, we get to realize that Harvey Bullock is still angry. He's still harboring a lot of anger towards Jim. And Jim, while trying to show a lot of confidence over there, is kind of embarrassed of his own actions because he does realize that Harvey is right, that there is a bill to pay and it is gonna come due. Which brings me to number 6, Sophia Falcone, Penguin, and Jerome. 3 characters that we expected to see on this episode, but they were completely hooked on radio silence. But I would expect to see them on next week's episode. I think this week's episode was more about introducing the new Poison Ivy, introducing the whereabouts of Harvey Bullock, and introducing the rise of Nygma once again, or the rise of the Riddler once again. But number 7, the Toymaker, the man hired by the Riddler in order to kill Lee Thompkins, he's pretty much the show's version of the Toyman from the comics. And what I think they did over there is change his name and alter ego name in order not to cause confusion, given that the Toyman has been on Supergirl either on the 1st or the 2nd season. Once again, don't remember exactly. Now, if you do watch Supergirl, you would remember that the Toyman over there was pretty much Winslow Schott Sr., the father to Winshot, the good guy we know in the series, part of Team Supergirl, and a member or a working member within the DEO. Besides that, the Toyman in the comics is pretty much a Superman villain, so Gotham here was pretty much borrowing a villain out of the Superman comics. But number 8, we get to see that scene with Tabitha torturing the hell out of Solomon Grundy has paid off in the long run, because Butch now remembers he's Butch, and he's not forgetting it at all. He is not going back to that Solomon Grundy persona. But a lot of fans might be wondering, why did they introduce Solomon Grundy if they were not gonna go all the way with Solomon Grundy? Why are they bringing back Butch? Why would they introduce Solomon Grundy if they were gonna bring back Butch? Now, to be comic book accurate, we might end up seeing Solomon Grundy again, but not in this life, or probably not in this life. So in the comics, every single time Cyrus Gold gets killed, he ends up reanimated as this zombie version of himself, Solomon Grundy. And in a few iterations of his return as well, he actually remembers who he is, and in some of them, he's actually extremely smart, smarter than what he was when he was alive and before all of this started happening to him. So Solomon Grundy is going to be one of the most versatile characters on the series going forward. He is gonna have a lot of roles to play, and all of them could be as different as you could imagine. But moving on to number 9, the funniest scene on this episode was the scene with Nygma, Lee Thompkins, and Jim Gordon. You know, that scene with Jim going, "You partnered with Nygma, why?" And him going, "I'm right here," and her going, "Wouldn't have been my first choice," and then Nygma going again, "I'm still here." That was just the funniest highlight of the episode. I really love what they're doing with the character of Edward Nygma on the series. Now, he is not only rising again as a villain, but he's also becoming one of the most entertaining and interesting comic reliefs on Gotham. But in the middle of that conversation, there was this very interesting part. You know, the part where Lee Thompkins goes, "It's Gotham. Is anyone ever safe?" That was pretty much my favorite quote on this episode, because Jim Gordon is always running around Gotham thinking he's gonna protect this guy or that guy or this gal or that gal, but he is always failing at it, or mostly failing at it, and that's simply because Gotham is full of corruption. He is no Superman, he is no Batman, that is exactly why Gotham needs Batman, and he is in a city where the corruption is so hardcore, the clouds are blackened every single day of the year. But finally though, number 11. This is the second time they've announced the actress portraying the role of Poison Ivy in an actress swap. And for the purpose of a major WTF moment, I think they shouldn't have done that. I think they should have left it under wraps and surprised us with the appearance of Peyton List in the role. But nonetheless, Peyton List is going to be amazing in this role. I mean, it is going to be portrayed, or Poison Ivy is going to be portrayed in more of an adult light. On the other hand, what we were used to over the course of the first 3 seasons and the first half of the season is a more childish version of Poison Ivy. So that is going to change, and she is going to be more true to the comics. She also got her abilities, so that's an added bonus. Now, we all know that by the end of the episode, she's kind of forming an alliance with Catwoman, or with Selina Kyle. Now, we didn't really get an approval out of Selina to help her with her endeavors, but even if Selina decides to do that, their fallout is gonna be over Bruce Wayne. Now, as I keep repeatedly saying since the beginning of the season, this arc is gonna be more year 1, and the first arc was more Long Halloween, both arcs from the comics. But just like the first arc kept borrowing stuff out of the year 1 arc from the comics, the second arc is going to be borrowing some stuff out of the Long Halloween arc. Now consider this a theory that I'm almost certain of. Can't say it's gonna happen for sure, but I'm almost certain. Operative word here being almost. So on the pages of the Long Halloween arc, Pamela Iley, aka Poison Ivy, does seduce Bruce Wayne using her pheromones. And when she does that, she has him under her control. She does that under orders from Don Falcone, who basically ordered her to do so in order for Bruce Wayne to pass a certain vote on the board of the Gotham City Bank. Now, while Bruce stays under her spell, even past him passing that vote, he pretty much gets rescued by none other than Selina Kyle. So besides the year 1 arc, besides the first year in which Batman becomes Batman, or Bruce Wayne, becomes Batman, and besides the fact that Jim Gordon is gonna be on the hunt for the man behind the mask and the cape of Batman, there are also gonna be other stories from other comic book arcs that we should expect to see on this arc of the season. But that being said though, my work here is done. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode, if there are any references, any Easter eggs, or any events that I might have missed on this review. Do let me know as well if you like the content of this video by dropping it a much appreciated like. And I do not think I need to remind you, but if that were to be the case and you did like the content of this video, do remember as well to subscribe and enable notifications for my future videos. Until I see you next time though, thank you all for tuning in and have a great day.